Hello and welcome to a very special cover story on a Sunday. We're recording. We're taking into account events in Pakistan because, as you know, the two states, the two countries, there is a lot of give and take as to what happens in Pakistan, and it has a bearing in India also. So, with Imran Khan being ousted out, what is going to happen over there, and also how will it impact Southeast Asia and India in particular? Joining me to discuss this is Dr. Subramanian Swamy. He's Rajya Sabha MP and BJP leader, and Professor Madhav Nalapat. He's the editorial director of the ITV network. Professor Nalapat, how do you see impacting India? You know this, and what do you think is going to happen in Pakistan? Is Nawaz Sharif's brother going to take over? What do you see? What's your take on the situation?
Well, I'd like to say that Shahbaz Sharif is absolutely the worst individual to become the Prime Minister of Pakistan from the point of view of Pakistan needing an honest government. Shahbaz Sharif has not made his money through wisely investing his savings or his family or the income left by his family. Shahbaz Sharif has frankly made a ton of money out of politics, and that is the problem. Now, Nawaz Sharif was very good at serving, in the sense, biryani and other things. He had very delicious fare at his home. I'm sure Shahbaz Sharif, the biryani is even better. But I would only like to say that this man is a prisoner of two forces. One is the military in Pakistan. And in fact, I would say one force, the military in Pakistan, which itself is, I would not call it a prisoner, I would call it a domestic servant of another force, which is the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China. So to expect that Shahbaz Sharif will do anything other than follow the agenda of the PLA, which is to weaken India under Prime Minister Modi significantly and substantially, keep making that effort, even though it's not succeeding so far, well, it's to expect a lot. So Shahbaz Sharif may come with all kinds of not only olive branches, but olive trees towards India. But the reality is, these are paper trees. They're imaginary trees. And the reality is that the fundamental objective of the Pakistan military, which has been the meltdown of India, remains. And in that, I'm sorry to say, very unwisely, they are joined by the PLA.
Dr. Swamy, your first reaction on events in Pakistan, and do you agree that, out of the two, Shahbaz Sharif versus Imran Khan, which option is better for India, or there is really no option that is better for India and Pakistan?
Well, what's happened in Pakistan is happened many times before. There's nothing extraordinary about this has happened. It's only a little more comical, the way Imran Khan, ran away from the assembly, and then he held his cabinet meeting, and then he made a new proposal, all kinds of things. Ultimately, the Supreme Court of Pakistan had laid down very strict schedules, and he lost. And even then, he still, I think he went and held another cabinet meeting, which was infructuous. So I think Pakistan, we have to understand the background of formation of Pakistan, and to understand what is going on. You see, first of all, Pakistan is not an ancient country. It's a 20th century concept, which essentially nurtured by the British, who wanted India to be broken into 500 or 600 countries before they left. Unfortunately for them, of these, most of them were Rajas and Maharajas. And Sardar Patel very astutely read the 1935 Constitution, which provided for Maharajas and Rajas to merge with the British India. And he used the same machinery, and the British couldn't do anything, just watch on in awe. And despite his ill health and his blockages from Mr. Nehru, Sardar Patel meticulously went through every one of those 600 kingdoms, which were made into separate countries. You must remember that the British didn't leave India and Pakistan. They left India, Pakistan, and 600 independent countries headed by Rajas, Maharajas, Nawabs, whatever. Now, of these 600, using the instrument of exception, which was a part of the British Indian Constitution of 1935. Sardar Patel got 500 of them to merge with India by his usual Samadama Beda techniques. So, for instance, in the case of Junagadh, there was a Nawab in a 80% or 90% Hindu country, a Hindu state, a Hindu kingdom. And he wanted to go to Pakistan. And unfortunately, the way he did it, there was a revolt. And in the revolt, he got scared and he left the country in a haste. But he took his 500 dogs that he used to keep in his palace, and left the Hindus completely stranded. So they said, we are now in defenseless, helpless. What do we do? So Sardar Patel then sent the army and took over Junagadh. Hyderabad, it was a
just a bit to the present also, because otherwise.
Yeah, I know, but you see, you must understand that that India was constructed in a systematic way, and it is an ancient country. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, it is put together by the British, and they have been miserable because it is not an original country. It has no common ideology, culture, history, and so on. There were 5 countries. One was Bangladesh, now separated. Then there was West Pakistan, which is Punjabi. Then there's Pakhtunistan, which is all the frontier people. Then there's the Baluchis, who never merged into Pakistan. They were forcibly taken over by the Pakistani army. And there's Sindh, which doesn't want to be part of these West Pakistanis, you see, or West Punjabis who are in Pakistan. So it was a ragtag and bobtail, as the slang goes, country, and it has broken up twice already. It can any day break into 4. So you are dealing with a country which only exists on paper. In this context, you see, as Professor Huntington had said, you must have what they call as salience and substance to form a government. You must have a common history. You must have common values. Huntington has written a magnificent book on what constitutes a nation. And he was a Harvard professor. I knew him very well, and we have had discussions with him. Now, those elements of a nation is not there. Pakistan is bound to break further, and India should be ready for that. That's my second point. The third point is once it became independent, over the years they had only 1-point program: hate India. In that, now the Islamic forces have come. Islam is not, by the way, a nation anywhere. They went and captured other countries and then took the name of that country, the language of that country, and then made it into an Islamic republic. For instance, Persia. Persia was a Zoroastrian country, and their culture and their gathas and their religion resembles ours in many ways, and that's why when those who escaped came to India, they fitted perfectly within India. But the Islamic invasion took it over and kept the name Persia, kept the language also Persian, and changed the name of Persia to Iran. So the same way you will go in the other countries. So Pakistan today is not a country with a legacy. And therefore, what you are seeing today is that everybody for himself, how much he can get, everybody is corrupt. There's no exceptions, as Nalapad said. So I would broadly say, I'm not surprised by this circus that is going on in Pakistan today. And India should take advantage of it and strengthen its own national security by doing what is necessary with the remaining part of Pakistan.
Professor, when Imran Khan says that the Western powers try to destabilize me, I mean, how seriously do we take his comments? Because this soon happened after his visit to Russia. Any merit, or he's just looking for conspiracy theories?
Look, this particular Western power named by Imran Khan has a history of meddling in different countries. So it's not inconceivable. But there is another country which Imran Khan is too frightened to speak about, and that is China. Because let us face it, the Pakistan military is completely dominated by China. And the Pakistan military has been behind the ouster of Imran Khan. I know, I mean, as some of us have said from the very beginning, Imran is not going to survive as Prime Minister of Pakistan. He was brought in by the army, and the force that brought him in wants him out now. Now, why does the military want him out? It wants him out because the military wanted him to be a kind of a cosmetic face on the fact that this military is now completely a servant of the PLA. They wanted Imran to be their camouflage. And of course, for a long time, they've been camouflaging the West. Even today, I'm sorry to say, none of these countries that are for fighting each other to levy harsher and harsher sanctions on Russia for frankly doing very little compared to what Pakistan has done to the world and to India. Not even a single sanction on a single Pakistan army officer or even a Subedar. It's a shameful record of the Western world, and it's a shameless record as well. But I'd like to say they've been very good at this kind of camouflage. But today it's becoming very difficult to ignore the fact this military is completely dominated by China. So even Imran Khan could not get away from that reality. You'll notice that Xinjiang is a province where a lot is happening to the Uyghur population. Dear old Imran Khan, who is supposed to be the defender of the Muslim community all over the world, and the Pakistan military, which has got jihad in its motto, the great defender. Well, where China is concerned, they're meek as lambs. They are basically supplicants, and they see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil of the PRC. And that goes to what is happening in Xinjiang as well. So, that is the problem. Poor Imran could not seduce the West. Now, I mean, Imran Khan, I've been tracking his career from the time he was a cricket captain, and there's no question he was a very highly attractive individual in those days. I mean, hostesses in Mumbai and Delhi used to fight each other for the privilege of hosting him for an evening. They used to basically be lifetime enemies because one of them got Imran Khan for dinner, and the other said, either I get him for breakfast or I'm going to be enemy for life. And Imran, of course, became friendly with both ladies because he liked breakfast, he liked lunches, he liked dinners in India. I mean,
he liked ladies. He liked ladies.
He liked the ladies also.
Look, I'm not going to cast aspersions on the character of Imran.
What? There's nothing wrong with that.
Ladies is not an aspersion, Professor.
I would only like to say, I'm sure that they discuss cricket, and cricket is a fascinating game. But that is why, for example, the military, why do the Chinese not trust him? Because he has a lot of individuals not only in India, but more importantly in the Western world. Imran Khan has 20 more admirers in the Western world for every admirer he has in India. I know Western people who frankly almost swooned when I mentioned some nasty things about Imran Khan. They were so upset. They wanted to deny me my vegetarian dinner at their house because Imran was such a welcome guest in their house. So I have at least one or two examples of that in which Western guests were very offended that I am this greatly saintly figure, this wonderful, great credit to humanity. I am actually saying something nasty about him. But I said, I am an Indian. I have come from a village. I was born into a coconut farmer family. I don't have your great intellect, so I can't see this man's greatness. I'm sorry. So anyway, I got my vegetarian dinner in both those places.
We're discussing Pakistan, Dr. Swami, and Professor Nalapat, of course, outrightly said that there was a Chinese hand also behind Imran Khan's removal, ouster. Your take?
Well, I mean, it doesn't take very much to remove a leader in Pakistan. So I don't think this is a great feather in the cap of the Chinese if this is what is done. Let me say first thing that I'll connect the Chinese issue with the implications for India. First of all, Pakistan is in occupation of 1/3 of Kashmir. and who is ruling Pakistan and who their allies are very important for us. The Chinese had made a deal with Imran Khan that he would allow the whatever is the border roads or whatever
Belt and
be to pass through Aksai Chin, not Aksai, through POK. And that was dangerous because in the past, the Chinese would either make a comment that the matter has not been settled and our working on in that area is subject to what the outcome of that dispute is. So now it's open, and that's why I think that I find it very difficult that the Chinese would like to get rid of him. Number one. Number two, Nalapat is not going to agree to it, so please gag him and not ask him to interrupt. Russia is a stooge of China. It is called, a polite term is junior partner. There's nothing that Russia has done in the last 7-8 years which is not to the liking of the Chinese, including Ukraine. And on Kashmir, on Afghanistan, everywhere, Russia has only said what the Chinese want to hear. When we first found out, when a lady officer found out in April 2020 that the Chinese had come into Indian territory and they had taken parts of Galwan also, and they had aims to go further, the Russians informed us officially, and I've got this on authority, that this is not to be excited. You shouldn't get excited about it because this is only their field practice which they have done. They'll withdraw very soon. They never did withdraw. And I suppose the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, listened to the Russians, and that's why he said, koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi, because he thought Gaya is automatically going to take place because the Russians said so. So what we are seeing today is a setback for China and Russia. And in my opinion, perhaps if the Americans start asserting through the army, maybe some improvement in the terrorist situation. But we have disputes in Kashmir. We have disputes of ISI bringing drugs into India from Afghanistan. We have a number of issues in which we are vitally affected. So therefore, India has to devise a new Pakistan policy in view of what has happened. Otherwise, we are going to have problems. I went to Kashmir, Srinagar recently. In fact, I was the first politician to go without going with the paraphernalia of as a government minister, which others did. And there I found that the people there want, and I'm talking about Muslims, they want to be part of India because all said and done, they have seen what's happened in Azad Kashmir or whatever it's called, POK, and they feel that their schools should open, their children should be able to go abroad to get educated. And this we are not able to fulfill because of the constant infiltration of terrorists. So my opinion is that we cannot rely on the Russians. We cannot rely on the Chinese. Chinese are already complicit in occupying our territory. Russians speak from both sides of their mouths, so you can't trust what they say. They are actually they owe everything to China. They cannot go against China. This is my opinion. And therefore, India has to now either stand on its own feet or be a serious, genuine, honest partner of Quad.
Professor Nalapat, your reaction, especially to the Russia-China nexus?
Look, I would agree with Dr. Swami that the biggest gainer of this conflict between NATO and Russia, let's be honest, Ukraine is a pawn. It's just a battlefield. It's a battle. The real battle is between NATO and Russia. The biggest gainer, in fact, I would say the only gainer is China. There's no question about it. There's equally no doubt that it was not coincidental that President Putin launched his invasion just, almost scant days after Mr. Xi had the Summer Olympics, the Winter Olympics in all its glory was celebrated in Beijing. This is not coincidental, quite frankly. I don't believe it's coincidental. I agree with Dr. Swami that the Russians would have shared a lot of information with them. And I'm also sure the Russians have been severely misled by the Chinese, because who would have wanted to egg them on into launching a conflict with NATO, because China gains from that. It locks NATO up in Europe for the next one generation. And in that one generation, Xi Jinping expects that China will establish a dominant position in the Indo-Pacific, which, according to President Joe Biden, according to Boris Johnson, and sadly, according to Macron and Scholz also, is only a secondary theater. The main theater is the Atlantic. The main theater is Russia. China is a potential ally, and Indo-Pacific is only a secondary theater. We are having a 2+2 meeting in Washington. I hope Minister Jaishankar and Minister Rajnath Singh will make it very clear to the Americans to basically, make them understand that the real theater is in the Indo-Pacific and not this diversion to the Atlantic and to Russia. The real problem is China. I hope that's going to be made clear to the American side, because I think they're still living in la la land, judging by some of the la 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 comments of Joe Biden. But I want to make that point. Second point I'd like to say is that, look, Dr. Swami is not at all wrong about that. And secondly, I'd like to say, Pakistan, I agree with him, it's not really a state. It was manufactured by Jinnah and Churchill. Churchill, you remember, talked about, quote unquote, those beastly Hindus. I mean, that's Churchill's pronunciation, and he was welcome to his own pronunciation. We each of us have our own. He considered them to be a beastly, awful group of people who should never in 10,000 years ever be given any semblance of freedom. Absolutely beastly people. That Churchillian view is the ideology of the state of Pakistan, and the ideology which is championed by the military in Pakistan, which is a viscerally anti-Hindu force. And unfortunately, because of its influence in Bangladesh, you have had multiple problems. Its influence in Afghanistan, you have had multiple problems there also. Its influence in Sri Lanka, it's in Nepal, it is insidiously growing its influence. The basic ideology of the state of Pakistan was Churchillian ideology. And the military is the upholder of that ideology. And the military today is completely in the control of the PLA. Now, so far as Russia is concerned, well, I would like to congratulate Joe Biden on behalf of China, because he has ensured that Russia is now completely, linked to China, complete alliance with China. So Joe Biden has done a great favor to China. NATO has done a great favor to China, possibly deliberately. I think they must be scared of facing China. They must be worried about the Indo-Pacific. They are much happier about the Atlantic. They are much happier about Russia. And meanwhile, all their emissaries go to Beijing virtually every day and essentially fall at the feet of Xi Jinping. Oh, the great Xi, help us from Putin. Who's the real enemy of the world? It's not you. You're the hero of the world. Putin is the enemy of the world. Help us from this monster, our dear, and we will even acknowledge you as the emperor. So on all these points, the last point, Priya, before you hand over to Swami, Pakistan is there, Balochistan, it is Pashtunistan, it is Sindh, and in Punjab, it is also Potiawar. The military is a Potiawari army. It's not a Punjabi army. Punjabis are actually very good people, and POK is completely Potiawari. That P is Potiawari occupied Kashmir, because the Potiawaris have taken over Kashmir. If you can find a Kashmiri speaking person in Potiawari occupied Kashmir, Priya, I'm willing to give you 100 rupees for every Kashmiri speaking person that you can find.
Let me make one comment.
Quickly. Now, I need to end some Dr. Swami's last comment and then I quickly end. Here, Dr. Swami, quick
Today, I don't think it's a time for analysis. Time for India to make clear what is its strategic policy. because we don't have any strategic policy. It's no use saying that I hope that Rajnath and Jaishankar will go there and put India's point across. I don't know what instructions they have got. What do we want India to be? A pole or a partner of the United States, or be in the BRICS? You can't be with all. So that is the only point I want to make, that what the lesson of Pakistan is, wake up, Mr. Modi. We have a big problem ahead. Let's have a doctrine which is good for India.
Let's have a strategic, comprehensive policy in place. That makes a lot of sense. But thank you, both of you, for this conversation. As usual, it's been very stormy, and also a lot of points have been made. So thank you. Thanks a lot for this conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.